Welcome. It's all about Patroni. We have been waiting to see this course almost for 3 years. It took almost 3 years to make it, and now this course is ready. In this first session, we are not going to publish any content, but just in case you are willing to learn yourself, there are some of the contents which we are supposed to. I believe there are 14 or 15 sections wherein this entire course has been covered, and there is one section which is still uncovered is section 15. It's not been completed. It is still in the creation phase. So let us see what all we should be learning in Patroni. First of all, like who should learn Patroni? It is just not like any other PostgreSQL software wherein the things are going to revolve around PostgreSQL. It is more than that. So you should have some understanding of DevOps. You should have some understanding of some extra softwares. That's all open source softwares that is used in building the suite for what do you say, Patroni. And we start with understanding what Patroni is. If you are trying to learn yourself, you should create 3 node streaming replication setup. That's the bare minimum requirement when you try to have the Patroni system working on your environment. And we can see if it is just a streaming replication, and if you just simply try to promote a standby to the primary, and then you try to bring up the existing standby to the new primary and the old primary to the streaming replication, what are the challenges? So these all challenges when you try to set up in a streaming replication, they all are getting solved automatically through Patroni. Then you can see what is the difference between Patroni, and if we see a basic streaming replication of 3 nodes streaming replication on of PostgreSQL latest. So we have been testing it with PostgreSQL 16. You can see the use case and special criteria when Patroni should be used. Since everything is revolving around Patroni, so we have given the privilege, like if it is just 3 nodes, what are the differences? What are the use cases wherein we should be used Patroni instead of using the basic streaming replication? That's more than sufficient in most of the cases. What are the scenarios wherein Patroni is not supposed to be used? We have another very good high availability solution software available, which is open source as well. It's Repmgr. Why Patroni is supposed to be more advantageous than Repmgr? Just remember, Patroni doesn't fit everywhere, and Repmgr also doesn't fit everywhere. You should be learning what is Patroni all about. Patroni, it's an open source software which is used to build your PostgreSQL high availability solution, and it is working on top of the streaming replication. It uses the concept of the leader election algorithm, and it tries to determine who's the primary node in the cluster, and it is going to promote a standby node if the primary node fails. Then you can go for further understanding on Patroni, like what is the add CD used in case of Patroni cluster. So is it required to have the dynamic configuration stored in PostgreSQL high availability solution through Patroni, which is normally not the part of the Patroni, but why it is involved? It is not just like a simple software which you can build on top of PostgreSQL. Why do we need to build HA proxy when we are trying to build the Patroni high availability solution? And why you need to have at least minimum of 3 PostgreSQL instances? It depends upon the kind of environment you are building. Do we really need PG bouncer? In our case, we are going to try to use VIP. We are not going to use, just to make this solution simple. You can, in highly production environment, you can have the VIP failover. So it's like If you're trying to make a solution which is very, very strong, you should have the capability to handle the components as well. You should be knowing like what is physical replication, what is logical replication, and when we talk about Patroni, in this case, whether it is going to use the physical replication or it is using the logical replication. So we already recorded the components over here, replication methods. So it's all available over there. This is just the basic that has been described several times to take what is streaming replication in PostgreSQL, what are the replication modes in PostgreSQL when we try to use it, when we should use it, when we should not use it, the asynchronous replication and the synchronous replication. Everybody wants to have the data which should be highly secure and highly available, but there are downsides as well. Why we are using proxy in case of Patroni cluster? Is it really required or we can skip it? It's the bare minimum requirement and we have used it. And we have a lesson like how Patroni, proxy is used in Patroni and what are its benefits. What if we skip using proxy in the Patroni cluster? And we had a complete separate detailed explanation and deployment of proxy on Ubuntu 22.04. So everywhere we are just using the latest version of it. Most important part in this, so like all the components are important, and why we are going to use @cd, whether it is going to have the dynamic configuration store, who is going to choose who is the leader and who is the follower in case of multiple PostgreSQL, who is going to keep record of everything. It is not like a PostgreSQL DB or an administrator or a DevOps engineer is going to look into this. It is all being done through this particular software, which is @cd. And if we don't use @cd, is our solution going to work? Or let's say if @cd, one of the node, if we install it on one of the node, if it goes down, then what's going to happen to the entire PostgreSQL cluster? What are the different alternatives of @cd? And it is like why we have used @cd in preference to Zookeeper and other solutions which are available in the market as of now. Then we have tested a 3-node @cd cluster on Ubuntu 22.04. In case you wanted to do it, if you follow the sequence, you will be able to learn a lot. And what happens if one of the node of @cd goes down in a 3-node @cd in a Patroni cluster? It is like when we are making the high availability solution, let's keep the configuration in such a way like if one of the @cd, which is going to keep control of the PostgreSQL, who is going to be the leader and who is going to be the follower, so that all information will be kept through @cd in the PostgreSQL cluster. Then when we do the installation and configuration, we will just see what are the different @cd commands that can be used. And this is the most important topic and basics of everything. We have set up the 5-node Patroni cluster. We started with 3-node PostgreSQL, on top of which we have integrated Patroni. We started with 1 node @cd and 1 node proxy. Then we just checked like what is the configuration file and what are the location details. We checked out what are the different Patroni configuration file. So in case you wanted to learn yourself, you can just go to the Patroni official website and you can find the details over there. And one of the section we have found out like what are the global and the universal configuration options in Patroni. What are the different logging configuration that we put in the Patroni just to make uh, uh, sure that the important informations are logged just in case we have to do the troubleshooting. This is one of the most important topic, like what is bootstrapping configuration in Patroni, and what sort of configuration we should employ just to make sure that our cluster um behaves normally, just in case we have to bootstrap one of the standby nodes. Then we have a session on what are the different parameters so that we connect add CD cluster in the Patroni. And then we have the configuration options, which is there in Patroni, which handles everything like authentication, it handles replication, it handles the rewind, it handles the callbacks and other parameters. And we have a quick look at what is Patroni REST API, how it is used, and what is the significance of having dynamic configuration store in context of Patroni, and what are Patroni DSN command. Very, very useful command starting from here. What is that we can do to edit the configuration in Patroni through Patroni cutl command, and how do we check the version of the Patroni when we have the complete setup available. If you wanted to see the complete topology of Patroni, how to find out it through just simple basic commands. This is very interesting. If I have to do a switchover, how is that we can do it using Patroni cutl command? How to see the configuration of Patroni? How do we list the details that all information is there? In case you wanted to use the Patroni to query the database, there is an option available. You can utilize that as well. If I wanted to see what has happened in the past regarding the switchover or failover or the important operations, which has changed the configuration of the Patroni cluster, we can use the Patroni scuttle history command. Just in case I wanted to pause the Patroni cluster, how can I do that? So if you see, there are lots and lots and lot of combinations which are available. If I just wanted to resume the operations when I have paused, is that something possible? So there is a huge, due to some reason, if I have to restart the Patroni cluster, what is the impact on the individual components, whether we talked about the PostgreSQL, whether we talk about the etcd cluster, or we talk about the HA proxy, or if PG bouncer is configured. In our case, till now we haven't been using, but in future we are going to have a lesson on this. Why we are supposed to reload the Patroni CTL command and what it is going to do. Is it really required to reinitialize the cluster when it is already in the setup stage? Or let's say there has been some issue, and in what are the things that needs to be taken care when we reinitialized it? We have made some commitment for the future. At this particular time, we are supposed to perform the failover, but we have decided let's not do it through the cron tab. There is a facility which is available in Patroni through which you can control, like at what point of time in the future you wanted to do some specific database operation which is going to change the writer or the reader behavior. In that case, you wanted to revert it. How Patroni flush can be important. Just in case you are done with your demo or POC or your production environment and you just wanted to discard everything, what you should do to remove all the components. Failover, very, very important topic. What is that failover is going to do in Patroni, and how we are going to use Patroni cutl command, and a very nice demo on how to perform the failover using the Patroni cutl failover command. Just in case I wanted to check what has happened, is there a way just to check the Patroni logs? Where does it store it? And how can I find the recent logs? And step by step configuration of 3-node PostgreSQL plus 3-node Patroni, 1 node etcd, and 1 node HA proxy. for Patroni configuration. There are several scenarios which we have simulated. Like if in this setup wherein we have three PostgreSQL cluster, three Patroni configuration, one etcd, one HA proxy, if one of the standby goes down, what is the impact on the cluster? What if out of the three standby cluster, if one of the PostgreSQL cluster is rebooted, what is going to happen to the read and write operations wherein the customer is coming through the HA proxy? What happens if the standby database clusters are brought down due to shutdown of Patroni on one standby? Let's say we have three PostgreSQL cluster and we shut down the services of Patroni on one standby database. What if the primary fails? That's a very normal scenario. And if the primary fails, is there some human intervention required or back behind the scene? What is that Patroni is going to handle? This is the most, what do you say, the liked behavior of Patroni, like how it is going to handle the entire operation. And just to make this demo working, what we have done to simulate it, and mostly useful in the demo environment wherein we do some POC to the customer or wherein we do it for our internal operations, like how it is going to be working. This is going to be highly useful. What happens if there is a host failure? The operating system itself fails. There is no connection between at CD, or there is no connection of primary with the rest of the standby cluster, or this is just one host, which is the primary. Then what's going to happen? What happens if we reboot the primary PostgreSQL cluster knowingly? What is the impact on the entire cluster? What if we kill the primary PostgreSQL cluster, PostgreSQL instance, or the Patroni? Then we did network isolation test. If the network is isolated between the primary and rest of the standby cluster, what is going to happen? If network is isolated between the standby server from the rest of the PostgreSQL cluster or the Patroni cluster, what is the impact? And this is very, very interesting. How are we going to connect primary or the standby separately through HA proxy? Then we see how do we connect using HA proxy? Very, very important. And what happens? Or HA proxy behavior in case of a failed primary or leader PostgreSQL cluster. Do we need to do anything from HA proxy? This is the ideal scenario wherein managed instances work. If the primary or standby something works, the endpoint remains same. Is there anything that can be done in case of Patroni just to make sure that there is no impact? How is HA proxy going to behave when there is a primary PostgreSQL failure? Do we need to change the endpoint just for the connection, or there is no changes required? What is replica imaging and bootstrap in Patroni? What is DCS failsafe mode? And just in case at CD goes away for some moment in case of Patroni cluster, let's say there are three PostgreSQL cluster, how it is going to be decided, like who is going to be the current primary, or is it the primary who is going to take decision like I'm the current primary and the two standby, they remain as the standby? And then we had a lot of questions on streaming replication, use cases and special criteria for using Patroni. And then we have question answer on Patroni versus Repmgr. When not to use Patroni for PostgreSQL, then we have questions on the components and replication mode, HA proxy. These are the topics which are still being created. This may take some time. And just to mention about all this, This is not going to be a straightforward course. This involves your understanding of the networking, and more or less, when we are moving towards such solution, which is going to be highly required, it is somewhat the entry point for the DevOps as well. In future, if the time allows, because these topics they take a lot of time to, so the course is already prepared just in case you wanted to review. You can just go ahead and check on the portal, like what are the different topics. So I have just mentioned all the topics over here, and in future, if the time allows, we will be publishing a couple of the topics from here with the results only, not the end to end, because end to end is going to take a lot of time. And hopefully one of the topic which will be released soon, like how do we implement in Kubernetes. So it is yet to come, so just wait for it.